I'm sure everyone's story is a bit different, but when we started Vivo, I don't think we had any idea of what to expect. So we didn't know what to be afraid of. I personally I make a terrible salesperson. I am the worst in front of customers.
And yet your sales girls are so good.
American tourists or people visiting Kenya coming to the store and buying a whole, range of stuff. And I'm like, where do you live? New York. Really? And what is it about our product?
Yeah.
They're like, it's the style, the quality, and the price.
Today's guest has turned an online-only enterprise headquartered in her house to 27 stores across the East African region, and now even in Atlanta, United States. Vivo Fashion Group has found unprecedented success since it stepped into the marketplace. This Loreto Convent Msongari alumni, who co-founded the business in 2011 after noticing a gap in locally made dance and activewear, has firmly steered the business from strength to strength since it started. She's now here to give us an insight into the character it takes to get a company to that level. Today's guest is Wandia Gichuru. Welcome, Wandia.
Thank you.
I'm super stoked to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Wandia, as we were doing the research, we found out that you said that the most courageous thing you've ever done is skydiving. Would you say that starting the business was like skydiving?
Oof. Not really. Not really. I think skydiving, you kind of expect it to be scary. Like, you're going up into the air, you've sort of seen other people doing it or watched videos. And so the adrenaline that you feel, have you skydived?
Never.
No. Oh, okay. So the adrenaline you feel, as you're on the plane and you're looking down, and that's probably the most intense kind of feeling. I think I'm sure everyone's story is a bit different, but when we started Vivo, I don't think we had any idea of what to expect. So we didn't know what to be afraid of. Do you know what I mean? So there's that quotation that says entrepreneurs sort of jump off and build the parachute as they're coming down. I think there's truth to that.
Yes.
At least for some of us.
Yes.
I mean, I think, because you're doing something that probably hasn't really been done before in that way. You don't have a playbook necessarily. But no, I wasn't scared. I'm more scared now.
Of skydiving?
No,
or
of business. Like, I'm more scared. I feel more anxiety around Vivo today than I did 13 years ago when we started.
Is it because when you started, you didn't know what you didn't know, but now you know what you didn't know?
I think it's partly that. I think also no one knew anything.
Yeah.
So when you're starting, there's no expectation. There's no pressure other than what you put yourself under. But I think the bigger you get, it's sort of a double-edged sword, So the bigger you get, the more attention, the more you feel the weight of expectation, the more responsibility you carry. I probably take the fact that we have across Vivo and Shop Zetu now 450 people on our payroll. I take that very seriously.
Yes.
But it also comes with, a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Because those are 450 people that need to get paid.
And in
every
Africa,
month.
We say it's for every one person, they're feeding 5 people
Exactly.
in the family.
Yeah.
And so when I started my own business, I had a group of friends that we used to meet and who run a business. We each ran our own sort of firms. And we used to say that the cycle was just make sure that you've got enough to get to payday.
Yes.
And then the whole damn cycle starts again.
Yep.
You've managed to pay salaries.
Yep.
You can breathe for maybe 4-5 days, and then the whole cycle starts again.
Wow, you had 4 days to breathe? Yeah, it doesn't stop. And,
Yeah.
at least for us, it hasn't stopped. So I don't remember a month where we were just like taking it easy. There has
Really?
never been a month that we're taking it. Maybe
Even after Christmas, like when there's everyone's selling, everyone's in a buying mood.
I mean, I'm not suggesting that, there's, it's, we're always one day to the next.
Yes.
However,
Yeah.
and maybe it's partly my personality as well, I rarely relax.
Okay.
I'm always on a little bit of edge, a little bit paranoid, a little bit worried. I never take yesterday's success to
Yeah.
mean tomorrow's guaranteed.
Yeah.
And even at Christmas, you're like, but are we ready for January?
Wow.
Are we ready for next year? Do we have our plan in place? So, and maybe that's my personality
Yeah,
more than
yeah.
business itself.
Yeah,
Although I
yeah.
have to imagine that unless you have really deep pockets,
Yeah.
and which I think typically happens in businesses that are much more mature.
Yes. How many years now has it been?
13.
Wow. How many years did you
13.
work in corporate? Because you were in global bodies. You were the UNDP,
Yeah.
World Bank, UK Aid. How many years in corporate, would you say?
I think probably, let's see, I would say 94 was my beginning that I worked at, no, was it 94? 92 is when I joined Kenya Wildlife Service on a World Bank project.
Yeah.
And then up until 2009, what's that?
What's that? Mathematics.
That's like 8 and 9, 17 years.
So longer in the corporate space.
A little
It was
bit longer.
Safe space at the time. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a regular.
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
more
yeah,
than
yeah.
17 years. One day we can't be that pathetic in mathematics.
Yes, it is.
1992.
That's 8 years to 2000.
Yes,
And
and
then
then-
plus 9.
Right. Okay. And then you started Vivo. But when did you start Vivo?
2011. So I took a bit of a break.
Yes.
And that's when I trained to be a life coach
Uh-huh.
and got my certification, my accreditation, and decided that I love it. I love coaching,
Yeah.
but I decided I didn't want it to be a career.
Yeah.
And so we started building, well, we registered Vivo in 2010.
Yeah.
But I always talk about starting in 2011 because that's when we opened our first store.
So, Wandia, what was the mischief you were trying to cure when you started the activewear? So you've come from corporate, you've started the life coach, you're enjoying life coaching, you figured it's not going to be a career, so you want to start something else. And you saw a gap. And that's where we say, what's the mischief you were trying to
Why do you
cure?
call it mischief?
What we say when you're trying to solve a problem, so it's a euphemistic way of saying, I'm trying to solve a problem, I'm trying to cure a mischief here.
Okay.
And it could be that the mischief is, and I've heard you talk about this very often, that the mischief is people are using mitush, they're going to toy market to get something that really they can be able to and should be able to get brand new if they could, but they can't find it. Or if they find it, it's super expensive. So that's a mischief that you're
Okay,
probably
so
trying-
yeah, so I mean, I don't know that Anne-Marie and I,
And Marie's your founder.
co-founder,
Co-founder, yeah.
I don't think that we were, so clear about defining the mischief. We just knew that we were trying to find product. We were
For
both
yourselves.
for ourselves. So
Yeah.
we were both in a transition phase. She had come out of corporate, also sort of recently separated from her husband. I was in a similar space. We had a lot of free time, and she's very active. Till today, she's super active, and so we were doing dance classes and Pilates and yoga and all this kind of stuff. And we wanted the accessories, we wanted the tools, we wanted dance sneakers, we wanted ballroom dance shoes. Couldn't find them.
Yeah.
We're like, hang on, there must be, we can't be the only ones who would like really cute yoga clothes or even things like, so that was our own need. And then my daughters were tiny, like 3 and 5, and they were doing ballet, and we couldn't find ballet tutus
yes.
at an affordable price.
Yes.
So the ones that were there, even at this time in 2010, were like 4K, 5K for a little tiny tutu. We're like, no, surely.
Yeah.
So that was it. We wanted it. We couldn't find it. There must be a need. It was as simple as that. We didn't do any market research.
Yes.
We didn't talk to anyone. We didn't do focus groups. We didn't.
Just like, let's
just start.
Yeah.
And literally, how are we gonna do it? Let's create a website. We'll sell them online. Jumped on a plane, did a bit of research online, and ordered a few samples from China, London, and South Africa. And the Chinese prices were obviously the better ones. So then we went to China, met with the factory, placed some orders, went to... let me take a step back. Before we actually traveled, we just ordered things online and tried to sell them online. Yeah. No one was buying. No one was buying as in placing an order for something they hadn't seen.
That's right. People want to touch and feel.
They want to touch and feel. They wanted to try it on. So
That's right.
So they were coming to my house. And I'm like, okay, this was meant to be an online business. This was not meant to be my house turning into a shop. So we were also trying to market directly through ballet teachers, through schools, kindergartens in particular. Every little girl does ballet at some point.
My girls did.
If they can.
Yes,
but it still wasn't enough.
Yeah.
So we thought we need a store. And then we started to look around, and it just happened that the Junction was opening their second wing. And we literally just walked in off the street, went to the management office, said, we have a business that does, dance, fitness, da-da-da. And they're like, ooh, that sounds different. We have one space remaining. And we were just like, what luck.
When the stars align.
But it turned out that they had a waiting list on that space. But just because what we were selling sounded a little bit different, they were like, well, we'd rather have that than just another shop selling, dresses.
Yeah.
So we quickly signed that lease, and then we're like, oh, now what? Oh, shit.
Yeah, because
we've gone from doing hardly any sales online, or even through all our efforts, I don't know, we were probably doing like 50,000 shillings of sales a month kind of thing. It wasn't much.
Yeah.
And the rent alone was going to be 150 or 100.
Did you have any employees by this time?
No, we had to find. Yes, but of course we weren't going to be the ones, well, I shouldn't say of course. I personally I make a terrible salesperson. Like, it's not that I think I'm above being a salesperson. I promise you, like I have just spent 2 weeks in our store in Atlanta, and I would run and hide. Like sometimes when I'd see people coming in the door, I just like, call me when they leave, because I am the worst in front of customers.
And yet your sales girls are so good.
Yeah.
Where did that you must have enthused them with? They're really
well, maybe we're good at hiring. I think sales, I've talked to people who say everyone has to be a salesperson.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but I'm a shit salesperson. I have a very weird relationship with money. So the fact that I'm trying to convince you to spend your money just feels uncomfortable. And so I would be in the store, and when people say, how much is this? I feel anxious having to say the amount. This is back in the day. Now I keep quiet.
Yes.
I let somebody else. And then I'd say, well, it's 3,000, but maybe we can give you a discount. Like, I'd be offering discounts even before anyone would say anything. So that's my issue.
So did you know that at the beginning? So or did you? So
well, I kind of knew that I didn't want to be on the shop floor all the time.
Yes, yeah.
Because remember, this was also going to be a sort of hobby business.
Yes.
It was never going to be the thing.
The main hustle.
It was never going to be the main hustle. So we secured the space, quickly went on a buying trip. Because the one thing we did, which thank God, we did it very early, is when we looked at the rent, and what we thought we'd have to pay for salaries and stuff like that, we didn't believe we could get those sales simply from the activewear.
Okay.
So we decided even before we opened the store that we would have to introduce regular clothing so that anyone walking in, even if they don't dance or do yoga, we can say, oh, but look at our clothing.
That's right.
So that's why we went on a buying trip to get clothing. And then, because there was dance and fitness as the main product, the clothing needed to be not too far away.
Yeah.
So we focused on stretchy, comfortable clothing. Not because we felt that's what the market needed,
Yeah.
but because we needed a product, we needed it to complement the rest of what was in the
right.
store. We open the store, people start walking in, and everyone goes for the clothing. And the reason they went for the clothing is because of the fact that it was stretchy and comfortable. And not all clothing fits African body shapes and sizes that well. And so it's like, oh my God, finally I can wear something that actually fits me at my waist and makes room for my hips.
And when you were buying that, was that what you were thinking?
No,
So
not
this
at
is
all.
completely unintended.
Unintended consequences, but because we needed it to not be too far away from the fitness. That was the only reason.
Yeah.
But now we started to understand the real mischief that needed to be cured.
Was to find us hippie women some comfortable new clothing, well priced.
And sort of, you know, I think the way people dress had already started to change. I think it's changed even more
Yeah.
since then. But, you know, this idea that if you're going to work, you must be in trouser suits or skirt suits or formal dresses. That there was already a sort of move towards a bit more casual, a bit more daring, a bit more, brighter colors. Like the dress you're wearing.
This is faithfully Vivo.
Yes.
This is very, very comfortable.
Yeah.
And I think because I've got a lot of friends and the reason we love Vivo is, and my daughters are hilarious because anytime we pass a Vivo store in any mall, they almost rugby tackle me to the ground, not
You're not going
to get
inside.
in. So there's the one in Sarit is my favorite because it's right opposite Miniso. So my younger daughter loves Miniso. I'm like, okay, you go into Miniso and I'm going to go into the Vivo to do it. So, and the clothes are super, super comfortable, just to your point. And we've all moved into a smart, casual, athleisure way of dressing. Now, let's talk about, so that's your first store at Junction Mall, your 27th store in Atlanta.
Wow.
And what is interesting, Wandia, is you didn't go alone. You carried other women entrepreneurs with you. You're very generous with your entrepreneurship. If you look at how you set up Shop Zetu. So maybe we talk a little bit about what was Shop Zetu. It doesn't only carry Vivo.
No, not at all. I mean, Shop Zetu is a marketplace.
Yeah.
So like Jumia,
Yeah.
except much smaller and much more niche. So it's focused on fashion, beauty, and accessories. And we try to be very brand driven. So whereas some marketplaces are more commodity or product driven.
Yeah.
You could probably see a brand name if you dig into it, but often that doesn't even mean anything. It's a trader who's just putting product. We're trying to promote brands. And we're trying to make product easily accessible online, because what we found is a lot of people, when they go online, the East African consumer, when you go online to look for product, you'll have to go to hundreds of different Instagram pages, different websites. And that's fine, but sometimes you want to see what's across, what's available. How do if I need a red dress, where can I go and just search red dress and find 20 different options?
Yes.
Where I can compare prices, I can look at reviews, I can see what else. So it's a place to discover. And then a place where you can also trust that you will get what you're paying for. What you see is what you get, kind of thing. So at Shop Zetu, we try very hard to make sure that the content accurately reflects the product.
So does that require you to go in and actually touch and feel the
Yes,
product?
and in fact, a lot of the content we create. So a lot of, not all,
Yeah.
but we want a certain standard of image, and we offer studio services for the brands that are on the platform at a subsidized rate, and the arrangement is they can use that same content then on their own platforms. So because a lot of all these brands have their own direct channels, whether it's websites, Instagram pages, or even just WhatsApp groups now. I mean, that's a way that people sell. So we're trying to promote primarily our own brands, but we also are happy to sell brands, international brands from other parts of the region.
How many traders on there now?
About 300.
Wow. And do you do a profit share with them, or just
We do a revenue share. So we take a commission on every sale, but we only take it if you sell. So it doesn't cost you to be on the platform. And a lot of brands, the ones that are listed, what they'll say is they get discovered. So it helps them, not just the revenue that they get from the sales on the platform, but it also helps people find them and they can go direct to them. We've seen many of them grow significantly since coming onto the platform. Yeah, so we try to help the brands in more ways than simply just list your product on the platform. We also, if you need warehousing, we'll warehouse. We create content. We can help you with marketing. We do a lot of collaborative campaigns and things like that.
So you're literally a business incubator, helping.
Yes and no. I mean, there are brands that literally launched off of Shop Zetu. They didn't really exist before, but there are a number that are quite well established. And what we say is Shop Zetu is an additional distribution channel. It's not in competition with your direct sales. Right. Think of it as your third shop or your second shop or 10th shop. But I think the reason we started is because the longer that we're in the space, in the industry, and I personally have such a strong belief in the opportunity that exists within the local fashion space. That is, we're not even scratching the surface. We're not, I meet people from other parts of the world where clothing, textile manufacturing, clothing manufacturing is quite a big thing.
Yeah.
India is one example, or China. Yeah. India, 92% of what people in India wear is made in India. Indians are only wearing 8% imported clothes. We are the inverse of that.
That's right. And India's what, 1.2 billion, 1.3 billion?
Yeah, but if you take the continent, of Africa, we're not far from that. But I believe it's the complete reverse. I would say Africans are wearing 92% imported clothes, of which the bulk is secondhand. Not a single piece of secondhand clothing can enter the Indian borders. Not a single piece of secondhand clothing can enter China. They would not allow it because that would disrupt the local industry.
That's right.
But what's happening now is we're starting to get the secondhand from China. We're starting to get the secondhand from India, Pakistan. It's and so it's very, and I know it's a controversial issue, but I think we have to look longer term at what are our competitive advantages as people. I mean, as a continent, and I think our manpower is one of them. So we have a lot of people who are eager to work, who want to be productive, but we need to create opportunities for that employment. And clothing manufacturing is one of the spaces that is still very labor intensive.
So there's an opportunity here for you, Wandia, then to backward integrate. So you've at least you moved from importing finished goods to now actually just importing the
Yeah.
the fabric, and now designing and stitching
manufacturing.
locally.
Yeah.
And so, what are the opportunities to even integrate backwards further and start sourcing the materials locally? Is that feasible? Is that
We're starting
long-term?
to. I think one of the challenges is with the, liberalization in the 80s and the just the entrance of mitumba into the market. The textile mill suffered. So we went from having 20 something, 25, like quite successful large textile mills, we're down to 3 or 4. And they narrowed their product down to fabric that primarily can be used for uniforms,
Yes.
Home linen, things like that. It's very hard to make fashion out of that kind of material. So as the offering improves, then obviously we've started to. I mean, I must say, even going into the US, we took a few styles that are made out of fabric from Rivertex, fabric from but it's not that easy.
Let's talk about the US right there.
Yes.
So I said you're very generous with your networks, and so you started the Shop Z2 brand, and then the US happens. How did that happen? Did you just wake up? I mean, you went all around the world one day, all around the world, and Atlanta is where you landed. How?
Close our eyes. You know that game you play as a kid, like when you pin the tent?
Yes, yes.
Had a world map and boom, Atlanta. No, it wasn't quite like that. So, I mean, I guess everything's an evolution, right? And when did the idea first enter the brain? When was the seed planted that this would be something we would consider? Probably years ago. It's the kind of thing that people would say, why don't you open in the US? Why don't you at least offer online in the US? You'd be like, ha ha ha, like really? How? How would we, in our current setup, make that possible? And then slowly we would get more anecdotal evidence. We'd have American tourists or people visiting Kenya coming to the store and buying a whole, range of stuff. And I'm like, where do you live? New York. Really? And what is it about our product?
Yeah.
They're like, it's the style, the quality, and the price. You can't get that combination. So I'm like, okay. And the fit. The fit. Yeah? Those 4 things. Really? Okay. Then Kenyans would travel and say, imagine when I'm coming. When I'm there and I'm coming home, my sister's like, you're leaving these things for me. No. And the sister lives in the US. Or
Mitumba.
do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. Or people would come, Kenyans living in the diaspora would come home and shop at Vivo. Or Kenyans would travel and say, I went and I was going to shop and I walked around and I'm like, there's nothing I'm seeing that's better than what I can get at home. So it's these kind of things that you're like, okay, anecdotal though.
Yes.
Fast forward to November 2022, and I was at dinner with an American entrepreneur who has built a number of businesses, and one in particular that was extremely successful, producing hair care primarily for Black women. Shea Moisture?
Yes.
Yeah. So Rich Lou Dennis is the entrepreneur behind that business, and he ended up selling the business to Unilever for $1 billion. And we were at dinner with a number of other people, and I talked a little bit more about Vivo. I'd met him before, and I'd said a few things, but he heard it differently this time. And he said, you know what? I don't have much time on this trip, but I'd like to come and see what you do. So I'm like, Karibu, come. So he came to the factory, and he was blown away. And he's a big deal, So I'm like, okay. He says, Wandia, I don't think you understand what you've built. I'm like, why? He's like, because you have built an entire supply chain. You don't just have a brand and a product, but you have the, you from scratch, you're designing it, you're prototyping, sampling, you're printing your fabric, you're manufacturing, you're creating the marketing content, you're distributing. And I'm like, yeah, but what else do you do? I mean, because in Kenya, that's pretty much what you have to do in a lot of spaces. He's like, yeah, but that's not what happens in other parts of the world. People will own a brand, but they're outsourcing.
The production.
They're outsourcing the design, they're outsourcing the sampling, they're outsourcing, which is fine, but it becomes more expensive.
Yes.
So when, and you have less control, you're so much more reliant on everybody else. I'm not saying that one is better than the other, but we did it by default, not by design. I mean, if there was a factory I could have outsourced to,
And how you just started, you were not, as Martha Koro says, I was not taught.
No.
So you were not taught how to do this.
No,
you just
no,
trisexed and started.
Yeah, so
Because first you were importing. In fact,
we were importing,
yeah.
and when
How
we
did you
started,
figure it
when
out?
one machine at a time, one tailor at a time, one design at a time. You just you go slow and work your way. But so he got excited and he said, I really think your product would work in the US. And I would like you to come and present it to the market through the Essence Festival, which he happens to own because he owns the Essence franchise. And so that is how we ended up showcasing at the Essence Festival last summer.
And what's the Essence Festival?
So the Essence Festival, so I don't know if you remember Essence Magazine.
Yes.
Yeah, so the Essence franchise is a media franchise. But once a year, they host the largest music festival in the US. It's larger than Coachella, and 500,000 women attend. Mostly women, some men too. Actually, Queen Latifah and Jada Pinkett Smith did a movie called Girls Holiday or something like that.
Yes,
it was them going to Essence Festival.
Yes.
And it's mostly a music festival. So in the evenings, it runs for 3 days, and there's huge concerts in a massive stadium, downtown New Orleans. It's always been in New Orleans. But during the day, they have a convention center where there's various activities, and it includes a marketplace where people sell. So it's like direct to consumer. So we're like, okay, Sawa, you've invited. I mean, anyone can apply to go and sell. But of course, most of the people who come and sell there are based in the US. So we're in Kenya. We're like, okay, we'll come. You tell us, that it can happen. We'll make it happen. And so we ended up going and selling an incredible amount of product to customers who loved it. And we were like, why? None of them had heard of Vivo,
yes.
but they were lining up.
And what we get a sense of is that Americans are very brand conscious. They want to see a recognized brand. But here comes an unknown from Kenya, East Africa.
Yes.
And they were buying.
They were lining up. I had people saying, do you have to pay to come in? Because I couldn't understand why there was this, crowd around.
How did you know how much product to carry with you?
We didn't. We carried way too much, which is, I'll come to how this now leads to the store, right? So we sent way too much. I mean, we had no idea what we were like, I don't know. But I'll tell you, for the days we were there, we were selling each day we were selling as much as we were selling across all our 20 stores combined. It's not a typical normal day for a shop. Even in the US, you have a captive audience. Everyone's stoked. It's festival and they're all out with their girlfriends. Oh my God, that looks so nice. Bye, bye, bye. So it's, it's not typical, but we were like, what? So the interesting thing, people would come to our pop-up And to be fair, we also had a beautiful space, you know, so we made a very nice. So even if they had never heard of us, they probably were like, "Who are these guys?" You know, oh, we were noticed. They'd ask two questions. First one, what's your size range? And we had produced everything in 8 sizes. We did from an extra small to a 4X.
Wow.
And so we say we have a very wide size range, extra small to 4X. And like, oh, okay, one step in. Then they'd ask, what's your price point? And our average price point was about $40, $50. And they're like, oh, what else do you have? Do you know what I mean? So, so again, the same problem that we had inadvertently started to solve for Kenyans was the same problem that African Americans were having too, which is a fit, a size, you know, the color complements, all that kind of stuff. And so that gave us, well, two things happened. One, we had a lot of products stuck in the States because we had taken way too much.
That's right.
And you can't really bring it back.
Yes.
It didn't make sense, you know, even customs-wise and everything else. And secondly, we thought, we were more convinced that there is a market. Of course it does. It's not that easy. You don't just open a store. So since last summer, it's been, you know, let's try online. Let's try a few other pop-ups. And then one of those pop-ups was in March this year. So I go to the pop-up, and I don't usually attend, but in Atlanta.
Okay.
So why Atlanta? So I'm working with a Kenyan lady who's based in Atlanta. And she's been organizing a number of these different pop-ups. And she said, you know, I think it would be good for you to come for this one. So I went in March. And while we were there, again, I was like, you know what? Maybe we should try a store. And so we started. I mean, this is the true story, which I haven't even told because it's all happened so quickly that I've not really shared this. But so we walked around, went to a couple of malls, started speaking to a few property, you know, mall agents and managers and stuff. And so we'd seen a few spaces. We hadn't signed anything, but we had a feeling that, you know, well, I think this might be the right location, the right venue. And then I come back to Kenya. And the week I come back, I find out that there's going to be this state visit. And one of the stops was going to be Atlanta. And because we've been given some support by the US Embassy, I reached out to someone and said, you know, I didn't say we are thinking of. I said, we are opening a store in Atlanta. Do you think there's a possibility that we could be put onto the agenda for when the Atlanta program is being designed? Because we could time it so that we launch it that week.
Yeah.
And they were like, what? That's really exciting. Let's see. And that's how this thing started. So by the time they were saying, yes, we can make it happen, we were still negotiating the lease.
Holy smokes, you're kidding. As if you didn't get the lease, you would have had the president go and open a pop-up shop. But you were like, we are going to do this.
Well, I don't know. I was like, what will I say if this thing doesn't? You know, that was one of the things.
How many months ago was that? Because this visit was in May.
May. So this conversation was happening in March. End of March.
Okay.
So we literally literally got the keys to the space 3 weeks before.
No way.
So when Shiro tells you,
yes,
I got a phone call from Wandia, it was less than 3 weeks
and
before.
this is Shiro of the Anjiro brand.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes. It was less than 3 weeks before.
So you opened this shop. So let's take a step back here. So you've got a lease to a shop. You literally, the shop has probably no paint, not a lick of paint on it.
It has some because it was a space that had been used
before, yeah.
And to be honest, we didn't like strip it down
Okay.
because we didn't have the time.
Yes.
So we said, let's work with what we have.
Yeah.
Scrappy as that is, it just has to be good enough.
And is it in downtown Atlanta?
No, it's in Midtown. So
Okay.
it's in an outdoor mall called Atlantic Station.
Okay.
And it's, because it's outdoor, it was also going to be easily accessible
Excellent.
to the VIP guests that came and stuff like that.
And you chose, so you went ahead to not only think about stocking Vivo, you brought in now Gichuru, who does a lot of beautiful home decor. What was the thinking behind opening your store beyond just clothes? And who else is there? Because you've got This Is S, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, well, this is Essential, sorry.
This is Essentials.
We
yeah.
have,
and she does
clothing.
Okay.
She calls it sort of elevated basics.
Okay.
We have Waithera,
Yeah.
who does body and room scents,
Yes.
candles, things like that. We have Soko, that is jewelry that's made in Kenya, 100%. And we have Ikweta, which is leather goods.
All
is also
female-led businesses.
all female-led.
All female-led.
All female-led.
Was that
and
what motivated you to invite them? Because they're all female-led? Was it coincidental? Is it that you love their product?
I deliberately
complementary
was looking for brands that complement our product,
Yes.
that were made in Kenya, ideally run by women, and had a product that was already US ready. So had already, for example, could get their products in, had the AGOA license or were able to, get it in ready.
And AGOA being the Africa Growth and Opportunity.
Yeah, which again, you don't have to have that to get
Yes.
into the US, but it makes it much easier.
It makes it easier from
so
a
so
customs
brands
perspective.
that were already thinking about
Yes,
or
exporting.
were already, Soko was already in the US. Waithera was already in the US.
Okay.
And then also people I knew and trusted, just because of the short timelines. We couldn't afford to say we were going to bring a brand and then not have them come, because they were being, the press release that was going to go out, the president's speech was going to talk about them. So we needed to make sure it would happen.
Kind of like jumping off of a plane and it's humming. It's channeling skydiving.
Oh, really?
And
Yeah,
it is.
maybe. And it probably is the scariest thing that I've done, only because it feels like it's so much less in my control.
Yeah.
And not that anything is ever really in our control, but somehow it's like, yeah, Kenya, I sort of understand. Uganda feels not too far away. If something happens, we can get there quickly. We sort of feel like we understand the market. It's not that different. Rwanda's not that different. I mean, every market has its nuances, but the US is still very much an unknown. And even now, even as I sit here, even as the store is open, I'm still scared. I'm probably more scared about this than I've been.
How did you hire staff? I'm still on 3 weeks to go, Wandia. 3 weeks to go. Sign a lease.
You
try and
do
a retrofit.
you do the Kenyan way. You look for who you know, whose son, whose cousin.
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness! Then you have to register for tax. I'm assuming.
Yeah. So because we had gone to Essence, we had already a registered business. So that.
Okay.
All that groundwork had been done, because you can't just go and sell without having registered a company, incorporated it. You have to have business registration. You have to have a PIN number, the equivalent of a PIN number. So all of that had happened.
Okay.
And because my counterpart on the US side is based in Atlanta, we had
You say
selected.
counterpart, you mean a partner?
So she's working with us. She's part of the team,
Okay.
running the US business.
Yeah.
We had, at the end of Essence, because we had a lot of stock, we found a third-party logistics company in Atlanta who would warehouse our products, and then so that we could sell it online.
Yes.
So the product was already sitting in Atlanta.
So this is a product from the Essence Festival.
From the Essence Festival. So because of that, we had registered to trade in Atlanta. You know,
all the stars were aligning.
yeah. And Atlanta also, for many reasons. And by the way, the reason I picked that particular warehousing partner is because it's a Black female-owned warehouse. So I think there's been this kind of, and I actually credit the same Rich Lou Dennis. If anyone is interested, you know, there's a lot of content you can find about his philosophy and what he's done for Black businesses in the U.S.
So what's his name? Rich
Lou.
Rich Lou.
Rich Lou is one name. Dennis. He coins his approach to business. He calls it community commerce. And he says, you know, it's not enough to just sell to a particular target group. If that's who you're selling to, that's who you should be working with, that's who you should be sourcing from, that's who you should be partnering with, that's who you should be mentoring, that's, you know, think about it much more holistically. So community commerce. So I try wherever possible to think about if we have an opportunity to hire a tech company, I would first and foremost want it to be a Kenyan tech company. And if I found a women-led tech company, even better. So with that kind of thinking, we had found this warehouse partner in Atlanta, all female-owned, female-run. Atlanta has a very large and increasingly affluent Black American population. It's in the South. Weather-wise, it's a little more mild. So our product, which we don't do heavy winter wear, it has an international airport, very busy one. In fact, Atlanta Airport, they say, is the busiest in the world. So it's easy to get product in and out. There's Delta's headquartered there. So shipping, if you're shipping by air, rents are not as expensive. So a lot of things kind of, and if you're going to start somewhere, and you just have to make a choice. I don't know what your philosophy is, but I believe, you know, you make a choice and then you make it the right choice. Yeah. Because you've made it. It's like marriage, or
you've jumped off the plane, Wandia.
You've done it, you know.
This parachute better work.
Yeah, you want to know that you have what you need before you jump off. Yeah. But, you know, would Atlanta have been, you know, the best choice? Would Dallas or Austin, Texas have been better? Washington? A lot of people have said, why not, why not, why not? And I'm like, well, we had to pick one.
That's right.
But yeah, so we had a number of things. So we didn't go from my living room to a store in Atlanta one day to the next. There were a number of steps and building blocks that got us there. And we're still scared.
1 month in. Mm-hmm. So are you on the phone a lot with the store manager?
Yes. We're on WhatsApp at least 5 times a day, calls at least 5 times a week.
I mean, 7 hours behind. Yeah. Wow.
But it's, I'm scared, but I'm so excited. I'm not just excited for Vivo. I'm excited for the wider opportunities that exist for African brands. And I genuinely believe that A, we have a lot to offer. Yeah. B, that there is an excitement around Africa that, you know, is increasing. It's growing all the time. I credit Afrobeats for a lot of it. Afrobeats has changed, and Amapiano, it has changed the way the world sees Africa from a talent, creativity point of view. There is nothing hotter on the music scene than African music. And even now at the store, we play African music, and that brings people in from the street.
That is amazing.
And, you know, I think we should stop being scared.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we should stop letting being scared stop us from trying. We should stop thinking that it's such a big deal. As much as it is a big deal, and I'm so grateful to everyone who cheered us on. I felt a sort of energy that was bigger than us. It was like, this is ours. The way people responded when the news came out and as they watched it unfold, it's like, wow, we are proud. We are proud. You know, you've opened a door. I'm thinking bigger. If you can do it, we can do it. That was the kind of response. And I'm like, absolutely. Because trust me, 90% of what is sold in America is not made in America.
Yes.
It's not. Yes. All those brands you see, they're from all over the place. Why can't they also be from here?
Last question. This is because this is fascinating and it excited. I was following it on social media, and your socials were fantastic. They had LinkedIn posts going on, Instagram posts going on. You know, this is S because I follow her, and she did this beautiful video, literally, of how it was starting. Shiro was doing a whole thing on her side as well. So the buzz was definitely there. We felt like we're part and parcel of it. How do you take more of us to America? And when I say more of us, the way you opened shops there too, and democratized that online space for other people, and very generously too. What's in store for somebody who's thinking about going to the US, has never thought about it? You've actually completely debunked the myth. It's not that hard.
It's not impossible.
It's not impossible.
Yeah,
let me rephrase that. And you had somebody who helped you in this gentleman who helped you. What can the average Kenyan who's thinking big do? If he or she may not have access to that person, but you've shown that it's possible. What should they be looking at doing?
Wow, good question. I mean, before I even answer it, let me say that, at least from where we sit, the Africa opportunity is as exciting, probably more exciting. I see the US as a beautiful extra, but first and foremost, I think, the opportunities here are huge, right? So if you've got a solid business idea and you're getting traction, start here. There are I'm sure some businesses and some business models that it makes sense to start looking at the US immediately, or not just the US, anywhere outside. But I think grounding yourself at home, and not just Kenya, but I think the Africa opportunity is huge, right? And we don't trade enough, and we don't provide enough to ourselves. So I encourage that to be very, very much on people's minds. Having said that, if the US then seems like an additional channel or an additional market that you want to pursue, there are so many ways. Amazon, I think that, again, I don't have the statistics, I'm sure they're there because data is much more available there, but probably the vast majority of what you see in Amazon is not sitting in the US.
Which is why they tell you, it'll take this.
Yes,
will take 5
it is not sitting in the US.
Yes, yeah. And they do manage your expectations by telling you how long it'll take to deliver.
Yep. Shein, which is a Chinese fashion brand that Gen Zs primarily buy, the largest fashion brand currently in the in the world. It is larger than Zara and H&M combined. It has more downloads of its app in certain target groups in the US than Amazon does. If you don't know about it, go research. Shein, Shein.
Okay.
So I don't Shane, but I think Shein. Shein has disrupted the entire business model around fashion because Shein offers access for manufacturers to consumers. So they call it the MTC model. So instead of direct to consumer, it's manufacturer to consumer. And so hundreds of factories in China produce clothing with the Shein label that is presented to consumers globally. They're uploading 2,000 to 3,000 new styles a day combined because there's so many factories, right? And all of that product sits in China. As soon as an order comes, then it's delivered and you wait 2 weeks or whatever it is. So if they can do it, why can't we, right? So one of the things, and we're just a small player in a big space, but we're definitely looking to create a Shopzetu USA where that product doesn't have to sit in the USA.
That's right.
I think what it would do is give people a chance to test. We can facilitate the logistics.
Yeah.
One of the things that you have to manage if you're doing things online is returns. And so because we now have a physical presence in the US, we can use that to facilitate if somebody buys something and wants to return it, they can return it to the Vivo store.
So that order fulfillment distribution part is a technical part of this online marketing.
Exactly. So you do have to factor that in. You have to know who's going to pay for it. Is it factored into your price point? Is the customer going to pay for it? So there's lots of things to work out. But I think if you can start to see which products seem to resonate better. I also think there's multiple ways you can supply other retailers. The US Embassy and USAID in particular is very keen to see more trade. And so they recently, through, when there was the American Chamber of Commerce Summit, had large buyers, Whole Foods, Walmart, who are looking for food product, ag product in Kenya to sell in their channels. Remember, there are many products that we are quite unique for, that are not that easy to find everywhere in the world. Cashew nuts, macadamia nuts, avocados, certain herbs and things like that. So if it's something that you're really looking at export, and I don't think you have to go the traditional route. I'm sure there's still a lot of people who do, but the technology and geopolitics, when I listen to Ambassador Whitman give her talk, which she's, her talk about why Kenya, why Africa, one of the main things she talks about is supply chain diversity. The world does not want to just rely on China for everything. Okay. And so there's lots of, and it's timing, it's waves. You don't know whether this wave will last forever. That's right. But take advantage of it while you can.
There's an enabling framework. There's the Africa Growth and Opportunity.
The AGOA, which hopefully will be extended.
Okay.
But that does offer an advantage to anyone's, sourcing their products from Kenya, from Africa, or from AGOA countries.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, Wandia. Let's dial it down a notch. You've been fascinating. So I'm going to completely shift gears.
Okay.
As we come to the end, this has been fascinating. I'm going to give you a few quick fire questions.
Okay, good. I like this.
So let's say, and all of these are Kenya based. Mm-hmm. So what's your top food destination, a place that you really like to go and eat?
Wow. So I've changed my diet a little bit recently. I'm trying to stay away from red meats and actually white meats. I only eat fish and seafood. So I'm looking for places that have good vegetarian type options. Mm-hmm. And I love the mushroom burger at Crafty Comedian.
Is it good?
Yeah, it's really good. Like it tastes like meat.
Really?
Yes. It's chewy like meat. It's so try it. Let me know.
I will. I like Japanese food, and I like because the vegetarian options are quite a number as well. So I like Tokyo, and I like
I go to Tokyo too. I like sushi, so I'll do fish.
So Crafty Chameleon,
mushroom burger.
It sounds like Donkey Kong. All right. Top. This is quite ground Kenyan experience destination. Like times, because I'm sure you like we did in Fast Forward, do a lot of sound of the river. Just get to understand what are your potential buyers looking to wear. So what does Shop Zetu look like? So where do you go to listen to the sound of the river?
Oh
Kenyan
dear.
style.
Kenyan style. I'm the worst, but I mean, the team does a lot more of that. I rarely go out. But, I'm always trying to understand the younger generation
Yeah.
and what are they wearing and why and how is that different from the Gen X's, the millennials, the Gen Zs. So once in a blue moon, although my children would not like, they don't really want to hang with me, but yeah, I'll hit Alchemist and check out what the vibe is and what people are wearing. Walking around town, we have a store on Moy Avenue. I go into, River Road, Tomboya Street, and just sort of again see what people are wearing. And it's more to do with styles than necessarily where they buy it from. Because you don't know where people are sourcing their clothes.
That's right.
But I want to look at the styles. Like how many men are wearing jeans, or how few people you see wearing formal sort of clothing anymore, and what are people wearing to work? What do they wear? And what I find is these days our wardrobes are like completely versatile. Like what you're wearing on the weekend and the weekdays and what you'd wear to lunch or church, it's not that different anymore. And so I'm always
chances for men's clothing?
Yeah, we're already starting.
Really?
Yeah. We have under our Zoya label. We'll have
This is on Shop Zetu now.
on Shop Zetu, but watch this space.
Uh-huh.
And under the Safari label. Vivo will remain a woman's brand.
Yeah.
But Safari and Zoya will have men's and unisex.
Fantastic. The last one.
Yes.
What is your top I need to get away from everyone destination?
Ooh.
When you want to go undercover, unplug,
God,
Control, Alt, and delete your system.
Yeah, I'm closing my eyes because I
They're
can't
already
even
there.
remember the last time I unplugged. Because even when I go away, I don't unplug. But I dream of unplugging. And when I dream of unplugging, So I love the beach. I love Diani. Ukunda. Not sorry, Ukunda. Galu. Galu is probably my favorite beach in the world.
Okay.
But I don't unplug. I don't unplug in the way that I unplug when I am in nature, like a conservancy or a game park. So, Laikipia, to me, that the beach, I can look out into the ocean and I can say, someone stood near where I stood and was looking at what I'm looking at 1,000 years ago. But I still feel the modern world right around me. When I'm somewhere where I cannot see a single sign of the modern world, I think that takes me to a different place mentally. You're nodding like you know what I mean. Yeah.
Exactly what you mean.
And you don't have to go that far. Like literally, you can be in the middle of Nairobi National Park and feel like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's and particularly when you don't have signal, which makes many of us go into a bit of a panic, and then you're like, actually, I'm okay. I had a friend who she went to Ghana a few months ago, and something happened to the internet, and it was shut down for something. I don't know what happened to the internet. And she works. She's got a very high-paced job, insanely high-paced. And so she says she was catatonic with panic. She couldn't contact the office. She couldn't do everything. So she went for a jog on the beach, and then she just had an aha moment, like, wow, I have no idea what's going on in the office. They have no idea what's going on with me. Let me just be in the moment. And she says it was her best 48 hours
Wow.
ever. She had no idea.
I have friends who've done that
Deliberately.
silent retreat. Have you heard of,
Yeah.
some of them are 10 days long.
Wow.
Where you do not speak to anyone. You don't read a book. You don't write anything down. You don't listen to music.
So you're just
You
you
don't-
alone in your thoughts.
There are other people, but everyone is silent.
So it's
You
and
share
the-
a room with somebody you don't even know their name. So you only introduce yourself to each other at the end of the 10 days. And honestly, the idea of doing that scares me. Like, I don't know what I would do with myself for that period of time. And we're so addicted.
Yes.
We're so addicted to our phones, to this dopamine hit that comes with checking your social media or scrolling on TikTok, whatever it is. So I would love to do that. I keep saying to myself, one day,
Maybe you start with a 2-day one.
start with
and
the
then
2-day
build
one.
and build up, because 10 days is hard. Because that's what I'm saying. You're lost with nothing but your thoughts. And I think I'll speak personally. I think I'd be scared of what I'm distracting myself from with all these things that go on. You'd have to face your thoughts.
Yeah. What's your favorite
Destination?
for unplugging? You seem like someone who unplugs.
Yes, I do. And there's one of my favorite places, which I haven't been to in 2 years, is a place called the Maji, which is in Diani.
Ah,
And it's a semi-adults only place. They only allow
Okay.
children 12 and above. They don't allow young kids. But every time I've been there, it's I've come to discover it's a favorite for females who are going there to unplug.
Wow.
So it doesn't have meal times. So you can wake up at 12 noon and have your egg and sausage, and then you can have your dinner at 3. It's not structured. They've got a maximum of 15 rooms.
Nice.
It's by the beach.
And no one disturbs you.
Nobody disturbs you. It's fantastic.
I think you should go
Yes.
again,
I'm ready.
again soon. Yeah.
Wandia, you have been amazing.
Thank
You have been amazing, and I'm sure anyone watching this or listening to this will really have lots of nuggets to pick up from. But most importantly, it's just a lot of inspiration. It sounds so cheesy, but what I've taken away from this is your dreams are valid. I mean, you know what? You can start something, try exit, learn as you go along, and you'll get somewhere in the end.
You hope,
Somewhere big.
but you don't know, and that's the thing. I think, yeah, you do it afraid. You just
Hope is
do it
not a
afraid.
strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like I said, anyone who can skydive like you do,
I did it once.
I never went back.
No, and I don't know that I would. I have a fear of heights, so doing it was a big deal. But I think the whole thing around courage, because you asked that question at the beginning, and I'm like, what have? I think it's only courage if it's scary.
Yeah.
You know, some people can pick up a snake, but they're not scared of snakes. So are they brave? Like it takes doing the thing that scares you. So yeah.
Wandia, thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing and your candor and your grace. It's amazing. It's been amazing to watch. And for those of you watching, listening, I'm sure you've enjoyed this very much. Please join us for the next Nitpicker podcast, when we will have yet another entrepreneur telling us how they've jumped off a cliff and not died trying. Thank you.